Welcome to the ITVfest / PopCon voiceover panel. My name is Martha Mayakis. I'm a voiceover casting director and coach, teacher, etc. And these are wonderful voice talent. So we thought that we would introduce them, and then they can tell a little bit about themselves, and we can sort of see what we want to talk about. To my left is Steve Blum. And Steve is probably, let's see, oh wow, Steve has done a lot of great things. Wolverine in Avengers. Let's see what else. Transformers, Heatwave, Starscream in Transformers Prime. Are these correct? Excellent. Yes. To his left, we have Mark Ryan. And Mark, let's see, tell me about you. Well, Mark, you've got all kinds of on-camera credits. And then, to boot, you've done a gazillion Transformer projects, right?
Yes, and I'm an author and a comic writer.
There you go, exactly.
And I have 3 claims to fame. The first one is that I have hold the record for killing most people in 1 hour of family viewing in the UK.
Excellent. You can't beat that one.
Managed to kill 17 Normans in Robin of Sherwood. I'm one of the 3 men that has ever stood on the stage of Carnegie Hall wearing a green sparkly dress and singing "Sit on My Face and Tell Me That You Love Me."
Whoa! Okay. You were one of how many people who did that?
3. It was myself, Eric Idle. I toured with the Monty Python guys, and we ended up Carnegie Hall.
I see.
Sit on my face and tell me that.
Okay.
And I'm one of the few men that's ever managed to get the word bollocks into the Transformers lexicon. Very proud of that.
Excellent. Wow. Those are indeed.
And that's it. That's my life story.
Exactly. That's pretty much the whole deal.
It's now Cybertronian, right?
Exactly.
No, not in Cybertronian.
Not in Cybertronian.
So to his left, we have Alicyn Packard, lovely young actress, and Alicyn also does a million different things. And in terms of the voice of the world, the things that she's most known for, World of Warcraft.
There goes 1,000 hours.
Exactly. Olivia, she's doing a new project called Poppycat, right?
Yes, Poppycat. It's airing on PBS right now on Sprout, and it's going to be airing on NBC.
ABC, I think.
As of July 7th.
Is it ABC or NBC?
Well, Katie and I are both on the project.
I thought it was ABC. I'm probably saying the wrong thing.
It's got a BC
But be sure to check it out on Hulu. Yeah, so that's a fun one. And I worked on the Mr. Men show. I was Little Miss Sunshine, Little Miss Naughty, and Little Miss Whoops. So if you were to put my 3 key elements of my personality into 3 different characters, that would be it. Nailed it.
Perfect. Then we have Matt Wolf. And Matt, once again, does a lot of on-camera work, all kinds of different things, but has also done Hulk versus Thor, Wanted Weapons of Fate, Uncharted 3. Tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, that's you got it. I don't have as many exciting claims to fame as my fellow countryman Mark here does, or nothing is funny. It's all very serious, isn't it? Thor. Yeah. I'm not that serious, really, but I don't know. We'll get to that.
All right. We'll come back.
You're
How about that?
not a serious person, but you
not
play
a serious
one on
person.
TV.
That's right. Exactly.
And then we have the lovely Katie Leigh on the end. And Katie I've known for years and years. And Katie has been doing this for a long, long time. And you're pretty much, do you work on camera at all or mostly voiceover stuff?
Mostly before you were born.
Yeah. And you also are working on Poppycat, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But probably best known for Adventures of the Gummi Bears, Muppet Babies, those kinds of projects?
Darkwing Duck, My Little Pony, Richie Rich, Dennis the Menace, lots and lots of things, and the radio show Adventures in Odyssey.
All those big, dark, evil characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Gummy bears.
Yeah, I think the darkest I've got lately is being cast as the voice of a computer, but I don't think I was Gargamel's niece in Smurfs, but I don't even think she was bad.
That's terrifying to me.
Exactly, yeah. I'm scared about the whole thing. So we sort of skimmed over, Steve, in terms of you guys talking about a little bit more about your actual bio, like where is it, how is it that you got into voiceover? What got you started? Were you a theater geek? Were you a comic book geek? What was your history?
I'm just a geek, just a general geek. Now, I started in anime about 20 years ago. I was in an entirely different profession and sort of fell into it by accident. I didn't have any training at all, but 20 years later, I got training on the job the hard way. And it is not a way that I would recommend getting into the business.
Well, especially now, it's almost impossible to do.
It is, yeah.
20 years ago, many fewer people were interested in being in the industry than there are now. So now they really have to sort of get a.
I wasn't even interested in getting in the
yeah.
industry. It just sort of.
Somebody just go,
yeah,
I know this thing.
I could make sounds better than anybody else, and I could, and I do, and I could rip limbs off of other creatures and beat them with it, and I sounded more realistic than the other guys standing next to me, so I got the job.
I see.
But eventually it evolved into other things, and
Okay.
then I started doing Wolverine. I've been doing that for 8 years,
Right.
and I hosted the Toonami show on Cartoon Network for many years,
Right.
just come back, and now most recently Legend of Korra on Nickelodeon, and Starscream, Transformers, that sort of thing. So
And you work commercially as well.
I do work commercially as
Yeah,
well.
because I know.
Yes,
We've
yes.
auditioned for projects for me and booked some of them. So you've done all kinds of other things. So if somebody
Yeah.
were to recognize you from commercial
7-Eleven.
spots,
I was the 7-Eleven guy. Yeah.
What about that?
Oh, thank heaven. And then in video games, I've done. I just found out that I hold the world's record for the most voices in video games.
Wow.
I got a Guinness. I got a Guinness award.
That's great.
Yes.
Wow.
Who does that research is what I want to know.
It was really weird. They called me from England, and they were coming out for E3, and they met me at Nickelodeon and presented me the award. But we actually had to verify all of the titles. I didn't know. I don't keep track of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's
After a
pretty
while, people
darn
go,
awesome.
was I actually
That is
on that?
impressive.
That was the thing,
Yeah.
and a lot of them you don't know the
Yeah.
name of the show when you're working on it. So
I can't imagine when you have a body of work that's so extensive that you can remember what you auditioned for, what you actually booked, how many seasons of something, how many different characters. People ask all the time, I don't even know what I've cast.
yeah,
Let alone
I
projects
can't
that
remember what
somebody
I
else
did an
might
hour
do.
ago. So
Yeah. It's good. It's a good sign for both of us. And Mark, you had talked about the fact that you do a million different things. Where did you start? What was the first thing that you did in the industry? Was it comedy?
First thing I did in the industry. I worked the northern working men's clubs in the UK as a singer. I was a musician and a singer originally. And so that was my first experience, was live, entertainment in clubs. And
Did you have a day
pretty
job
rough.
prior to that?
I worked briefly in the rag trade, in the clothing industry, just literally briefly, about a couple of years. And while I was doing that, I was working men's clubs at night, doing cabaret and stuff, singing. Yeah.
So how did that transition into the rest of the things that you do? Because you do a million of them.
Margot Kidder and I were just talking about this. I believe you create your own reality. I believe that if you imagine where you want to be and you take that idea, the spark, the creative little energy, and push it out there and feed it and nurture it and push it every day, it will eventually manifest itself in your reality. So as a boy growing up in Doncaster in Yorkshire, my dad was a bricklayer and had also been a musician. He just gave me he went, I don't care what you do as long as you give everything, you try 110%. So I ended up falling into the West End. I was in the original cast of Evita. I played Magaldi, then I played Che Guevara. I'm the only guy that ever played Harold Prince allowed to do that, actually. And I'd done a show before that called Dean, and fell into a show called Robin of Sherwood, and I spent 3 years in that, which is a total cult show in the UK. And did a lot of television, did a lot of other theatre in the UK, played lots of other different characters and
So
stuff.
did you aspire to do voiceover stuff, or did somebody say you would be great for the part of...
No, I'm a complete usurper on this panel. The truth is, I had no desire to get into voice acting at all. I mean, these guys are really the guys that do it. I fell into it completely by accident. We got a call. My agent got a call. They specified they wanted a British stage actor to be the robots, possibly on the set. Right, but they were very cagey about what they wanted me to do and even what the project was, and and it's a true story. I went down to meet some of the casting people, and I'm also a sword guy, so I choreographed a film called King Arthur. I trained Keira Knightley and Clive Owen and all the guys archery and swords and stuff. And I went down there and they said, you just worked with Antoine Fuqua, how did you find him? And I said, I got on great with Antoine Fuqua. And they said, isn't he a little bit intense on the set? Doesn't he like fire people off the set and hit people and all that kind of stuff? And I said, yeah, he can be, a very interesting character. And he said, well, why do you think you got on with him? I said, because we were always prepared. Everybody was trained up, We're ready to go. You know,
There you go.
the director gets what he wants. And I said, I'm a bit confused. I said, is this an Antoine Fuqua project? And they went, oh no, it's Michael Bay. And I went, okay. You take it as you find it. And Michael's been brilliant through all 3 films with me and with everybody on the set. He's
And now that you've entered the world of voice, or how do you feel about it?
It's acting. The thing I think that I know how Steve works. I don't know how you guys work. When I like to get into a studio, you're still being a person.
Absolutely.
You have to physicalize it and push it out of and find it in the back of your head somewhere and come up with a voice and a character, and then push it out there. So it's all acting.
Sure.
It's just somehow honing it into this space that translates into something that's going to come out of a speaker or out of a TV thing. And I was just very lucky because they had me running around the set, being all the robots. I've been everybody. I've been Optimus Prime. I've been everybody on the set, including Bumblebee and everybody else that they have on the set. And being physicality of it with Shia or whoever's doing the dialogue, whether it's Turturro or, Francis McDormand or whoever, and trying to encapsulate that into this massive set where we've got helicopters and sometimes space shuttles and God knows what else, and you're trying to help the other actor get their performance out without being overcome by the massiveness of these productions. And that's how it came about. And so I stumbled into it. So don't tell anybody. Out there on YouTube
I have a
land.
question.
Everybody's a different journey, but I was getting, yes.
So what you do, because this is very different. I mean, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
The world of voiceover is just encompasses so many different things. And it's very unlikely that you're going to actually work on a set like you're talking about.
Most people are working isolated in a studio.
Right. That's very unique. So so I'm fascinated listening to you. So you're there and you're working with other actors and you're giving them the dialogue that's. Did your dialogue end up in the movie as well, or is it just?
Yeah, I've had a couple of voices end up in both. I voiced Bumblebee, I voiced Jetfire.
But you did that after, like, post-production,
Yeah,
right?
we went in and revoiced it and revoiced it and revoiced it until everybody was happy with what they got. But it was interesting because Peter Cullen came down. I can tell this Peter won't mind. Peter came down the set one day because he was voicing stuff. They were recording it and for later on when we actually started. Because I work all the way through post-production as well. I will go in day after day after day with Michael until we hone the scenes down vocally to where they want them to go, and the characters as they're being drawn in, the scenes are being edited till they've got it right. So it's not just the set and then you go in and do it afterwards. We do it a lot afterwards. Go in and do it over and over again. And Peter came one day and we were sitting on the set and he was watching me running around the Spruce Goose where we had one of the nest bases set up, chasing after Michael and move because he moves so fast. And because I've worked on sets as a sword guy, I know the technical side of lighting and special effects. I know what it takes to rig it and what the cues are and how that functions. And that's so much a part of when you're doing a big scene where you've got big crane moves because you've got great big robots. To understand that so that you don't tread on the other actor's delivery. And somebody like Shia, who ad-libs a lot of stuff all the time, you just have to wait. It's like a live play because some people do it like John Turturro. He'll throw things in. So I have to wait until they've finished before that's why you can't do it with just a recording because otherwise you're standing on the other person's performance. So you have to wait and pace yourself, wait until they finish and then deliver your line. Or whichever robot it happens to be. It's an interesting and different. I'd never done a challenge. I'd never done anything like this before, and it was one of the most rewarding and interesting technically things I'd ever done as an actor.
It is so different from the usual experience. Which, for instance, Alicyn, I was just going to ask you about. You're used to doing more of the traditional stuff, right? The go into a booth kind of thing. Tell me a little bit about, because I know you're also a musician. I know you do all the other kinds of things.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in this? And
in voiceover specifically, I mean, when I was in the first grade, I starred as Gretel in Hansel and Gretel, and I think it was all over from there. So I grew up on the South Shore of Boston. That's why I was commenting on your Patriot shirt. And my father was a pipe fitter, and there was no there's no industry out there, you know?
Yeah.
There's no world out there. And so I just felt this calling, like I wanted to be a part of the entertainment industry in whatever capacity I would fit in. And I just got out here and I was like, yeah, on camera's fun, but voice acting has this really fun, this magic. It's like you get to play like you're a kid all day long. Now, granted, I mean, for every 150 auditions, you might get one cool role, but the time that you're actually working is the time that you're actually playing, and that's when you're having the most fun. And so I just kind of found that the voice actors were like the kind of weird people, like not weird, like not weird bad, but weird like awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was like,
the
hey,
glamorous
I'm gonna be
world.
one of
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah.
So I just really focused.
We're
and
the
honed
cool
in on-
kids.
Yeah.
yeah, like the cool like art school kind of like drama geek cool kids. So I just kind of honed in on that and just said I want to do this and just focused and spent the next 5 years of my life trying to figure out what I was doing.
Did you do that when you were back east, or did you come out here to do that?
I did. My high school actually had a college radio station, and I remember my friend Mike Robillard said to me, "You should do voiceovers," and I was like, "What's that?" Like, okay. And then when I got to college, I went to Emerson, which is a broadcasting media arts film school back east. And I started working on the radio. And I was like, this is fun, I was doing promos like, you're listening to WERS. And I was like, ooh, that's cool. And so it's a different market out there. You're auditioning directly for casting directors, which Martha does. But in LA, the market's a little different. You have an agent, and then you go through that person to get your jobs.
Yeah, the bulk of your auditions are done directly via your agency, and sometimes even at home.
A lot of times at home now.
Some people have home studios. Yeah.
Which I
there's a lot
kind of miss, like seeing real
interaction,
people
yeah.
instead of just listening to the voices in my head.
Yeah. Well, we as
all
casting
know.
directors miss it as well, because there's an incredible life to a collaboration and getting to work with an amazing talent.
Yeah.
And going, okay, here's the drawing of the character. Here's an actor. They come in with this. Let's pull a little something out of them, and that's always been such a great, really fun experience.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
something about that, is especially, and I know that Mark will understand this, is when you get things sent from your agent and it's got a little brief and it says what they want. And if you go in, and sometimes you might get a bit of extra direction or something that somebody knows at your agency, but a lot of the time, if you do it at home, you're just left to your own devices, and it might say, "We want this guy to be British, but not too British.
yeah.
We want him to be like Yorkshire, kind of like Sean Connery." And then you're
Absolutely.
really screwed,
Yeah,
you know?
Schwen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's priceless. Yeah. Or we'll get things where they want Sean Connery without the accent, or with just completely bizarre.
Yeah, like a
direction.
kind of, we want him kind of like grizzly and tough, kind of in his 60s. Think Clive Owen.
Yeah.
In a bubble bath.
What I like the best is when they give you a page of description and there's 2 lines of copy, and you're reading this whole character description, like, okay, and then she says, "What would you like?" And you want all that? You want mine, right?
And
okay,
the description is about how intense this character is, and yet they're a little twisted and fun. Yeah. It's completely crazy.
What would you like?
Yeah.
I had one recently I went into, which I don't mind telling you, I didn't get it, but the guy kept saying, and it was for I actually don't mind that I didn't get it, because it was for a cigarette brand, so that's fine not to be involved in it. But the guy kept saying, like, yeah, I don't know, like, I just want to hear something like that special thing in your voice. And I was just thinking, like, my voice is my voice, I'm doing what I'm doing. And, I don't know why you brought me in if you're not hearing the special thing in my voice. And I just, obviously he didn't hear the special thing in my voice.
It's the magic. It's that light in your eyes.
You didn't give
that
him
has
enough
to come out
phlegm.
through your voice. Where were you doing a cigarette ad? Is that
It
for
was,
the UK?
no, it was here. It was,
Like a website?
it
Oh.
was for movie theaters. Yeah.
Oh.
For movie theaters. I'm not sure whether it might have been an international thing, because I was trying to
It
think
would have
myself
to be,
what the laws
because that would be
were
very
here, and I don't
depressing if
think
we're
it's
sliding back to having ads for.
Was it
Right.
tobacco
cigarettes.
cigarettes?
tobacco.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Could be.
We are in
No,
California.
nothing wacky.
Yeah.
They're looking for something wacky in your voice.
Bob's Collective. No, I want that special something in your voice, dude. You're not conveying the product properly.
Exactly.
Dude.
Matt, how did you make the transition? Because I know you do a lot of on-camera work.
Yeah, I mean, I think, originally I kind of started working, I was working as an actor, or kind of not working as an actor, really. So I was doing other stuff, and I was working, I was promo producing, I was cutting trailers and things like that. And because of that, I had perfect access to doing voiceovers, to starting doing voiceovers, and I asked them if they wouldn't mind if I did a couple of voices on my own promos.
Wow.
And they liked it, and I kind of kept doing them, and then after a while I had enough for a reel, and then other promo producers started to ask me to voice their promos, and on you go, and then you get enough to get an agent, and off you go.
And
then,
aren't you also bilingual? Don't you speak other languages?
Yeah, I do speak.
What else do you speak?
I'm trilingual. I'll try anything, Martha.
Gotta have fun.
No, I speak Dutch because I grew up in Amsterdam, and I speak French because of the school system that I went to. And actually in London I used to do a lot of Dutch voiceovers, but here I don't really do any. But it has come in handy, like the French. Actually, that was a funny one. I do on-camera stuff, and I went up for this film when I just got here about 6 or 7 years ago. And it was this French character. This is one that I did get, so it's a happy story. And so I went in and I read for this French character, and it was kind of this outrageous French character, and kind of crazy guy called Serge. Every crazy French character in a crazy film, in a comedy here in America, tends to always be called Serge. They're always called Serge. That's the guy, go-to French name. Yeah. Anyway, there's this character called Serge. And I did this thing, and I hadn't really spoken to the director. And I finished the audition. The guy said, "Oh, right, yeah, great French accent. And I guess because you grew up in London, right? So the French accent." I said, I just kind of thought, I'm not going to say anything. I said, it's a plane ride away. But anyway, so I just went with it anyway. But yeah, no, I do a lot of accents and things, and so that's kind of.
Did you always have an ear, or did you work on them?
Yeah, always had an ear. I think it might be a genetic thing because my dad has always been really good at it, and I always used to do it when I was a kid, and so then I gradually started to be able to use it in promos and then other stuff and animation and yeah.
What's your favorite project?
My favorite project?
The favorite character you ever got to do? You ever got to do?
Greatest ever.
Ever.
Is okay. Thor was a lot of fun. That was good. It was because it was the pressure was on to get it right. So I kind of enjoyed
because most of us
making
have heard
sure
of
that
Thor.
I did. Some people won't have liked it, and other people did like it. You can't really please everyone.
Do it.
I was just going to say.
Thor, this is
what
it.
Did Thor sound like?
This is it. Honestly, this is it. It was me. That I didn't have to. I did have to audition again. They wanted to hear me again for the younger Thor, even though I don't know. I didn't really do a sort of big booming voice for the first Thor, and then they brought me in again. I thought I'm pretty sure I can do the younger Thor. Anyway,
do the younger Thor.
This is it again. Sorry to disappoint, guys. But
Economy.
Exactly. So that was a fun one. That was good. And what else? I mean, a lot of video game stuff is always fun.
Yeah.
Having to do.
Do you ever do the big booming voices?
Which voices? I'm sorry?
And big booming.
Big booming
Do
voices.
you outrageous characters?
I mean, outrageous characters, not necessarily big booming outrageous characters. No, that's not really my voice. Sometimes, if you have to shout, I can bring it.
As long as the name's Serge.
Big boom,
Exactly.
outrageous, shy.
Exactly. And on that theme, Katie, how often do you do something with the voice that you have, which you've had since you were how old?
I don't know. I think it got younger after I was 12.
Once you realized you had a career ahead of you?
Yeah, I don't know. Some traumatic to my brain, made me, I don't know. But what's the question?
Well, I was just saying, how the characters that you do, how similar are they to the voices, your actual voice, and how often you need to put on a
there's
character
a
voice?
character I've been doing for 25 years for a radio show that is pretty much my own voice. But most of the voices I do are not mine. For instance, when I did Rolf the dog, he sounded like this, right? So nobody expects that to come out of my voice. Let's see, out of my mouth. And let's see, I do a lot of boy voices. I do accents as well. I voiced the Maharaja in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. A lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I've do. Oh, well, there's some shows I've done where I've done a French accent, let's see, she was a French fox, and so she had an accent when she talked, and I did the lead character of that same show, who was a girl with a Hispanic accent, because I'm pretty good with Hispanic accents, and I do that a lot. That's not total Hispanic, but I'm trying to remember what she sounded like. Alex, her name was Alex. No, Zoe. Her name is Zoe. But she kind of talked like this. It just depends, or because I grew up in LA, I kind of feel like I'm a, blood Chicana.
Yeah.
I'm Chicana because, and I do speak Spanish, so I'll do some Spanish.
Yeah.
And what I do a lot of, or what I used to do, was a lot of ADR, where I would match real kids' voices, not anybody famous. Like, nobody knows what the Maharaja sounded like, but I tried to match his voice. I did a voice for a girl in The Color Purple, a little one of Oprah Winfrey's kids. When she comes home at Christmas, I revoiced her.
Does everybody know what ADR, automated dialogue replacement? Pretty hopefully.
Wow.
So I do a lot of voice matches. I do a lot of boys' voices, little boys or big, even kind of some older ones. It depends. The little girls, I could do that. And now I'm doing the voice of a computer for a space show, and that's the first time I've ever done something like that. So different things. I do different things. Moms, and I got to be Mark Hamill's wife once in a cartoon at Nickelodeon, and that was a grown-up voice, so that was fun.
Me too.
Yeah.
For
what?
Yeah. The first time this is a story about me. When I first started doing voiceover casting, which was 18 years ago, we had a radio spot that was where it was a dog, and all his answers were Ruff and Roof. And Mark Hamill came in, and he was auditioning, and I'm thinking, I just met Luke Skywalker, And so he came in, and they wanted you to answer all the questions. Where is it, Roof? How is it, Ruff? That kind of thing. And then they wanted some dog sounds, and Mark started barking into the mic, and then he started running around the booth, and he was sort of licking his own face, making all these sounds. And I thought, this is the coolest job ever. Nobody else can say that they've had this experience. So, yeah, it's always been an interesting experience.
I got a lot of experience because from Muppet Babies, Dungeons and Dragons, which I worked on. I'm trying to think if there was another one. Those two shows, I think I sat next to Frank Welker for probably 12 years in a row. So I learned a lot of stuff from him. I know that I can give you a dog trick, if you're going to rub your nose, that makes a nice sound. You don't know that one. Might have got that from Frank. But
Does anybody else have any really funny, odd things that they've used over time that nobody else would have thought of in terms of creating a sound or a...
I've got a funny. It's not actually a thing, but it's a good thing. That I was doing this. Actually, for years I've been working with company for E Entertainment, doing promos and stuff, international ones. And every time I'd go in the booth, I don't know. Sometimes I'd wear a chain, like a long chain, come down to about here. And because I didn't want it to rattle, make a noise in the mic, I'd hold it like that. But it'd be under my T-shirt. So they always thought that I was kind of like getting into the emoting, like holding my heart. Yeah.
He's so passionate. Have you ever seen him? Well, that's one of the things when Mark was talking about being physical and embodying the character, that so often people think that as a voiceover actor that you're stagnant, that you're still, and I say you're not at all. And of course you have to be aware of the mic and you can't be moving away from it unless you're trying to create a sound that's from a distance, right? But that the physicality helps so much. And I said, there isn't a VO actor in the world who, when you say it's over there, doesn't go, it's over there. That's part of the whole experience is being physical. And of course I had some point.
Oh, but you have to move. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm lost.
Oh,
No,
dang
I am lost.
Well, I have a sound that I used to do when I was taking tests in school, and I've been able to use occasionally. I think it. I don't know if you can hear it.
Ooh.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's great. Just to freak out the teacher?
Just because I couldn't keep quiet, but yeah, just when everyone has to be quiet, there's something you can. Alicyn's trying it. She's getting it. My mother used, when you said about heredity, my mother could make some sounds that I still can't do. She was like, she'd do like stuff, and my dad used to do accents, so I think it might be a little hereditary.
When my niece was little, she was probably 3 or 4, she could sound as if she were speaking underwater, and now that she's an adult, she can't.
Well, that's a trick,
Yeah, so
No,
she didn't do that. She didn't use her fingers. She just could speak
do
that way.
it?
It sounded as if bubbles were coming out. Any of you have any of those tricks that you do?
No, actually, that's one thing. I don't know.
No.
I mean, a lot of times you can create characters just by playing with your face, and you guys can go home and try this and just start to if you pull out your cheek, you realize you start to make a silly face, and it influences the whole character. So, I mean, that's one way you can kind of create new
that
characters.
can hurt, but it certainly pays well.
Especially if you get cast as that 26 episodes.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Dee Baker does face alteration.
Does
He's
he?
doing
Yeah.
creature voices. Have you guys worked with Dee? He does a lot of, probably most of the creature voices you've heard besides Frank Welker. He and Dee and Frank do most of the creature voices.
Danny
for-
Mann, too.
Danny does a lot. But Dee actually does a thing where he'll press on his sinus cavity. And he says he's actually altering the shape of it, which could happen because it looks like a finger's coming out of the back of his head when he's doing it. But Dee he's not a
Not a
huge
big
guy.
man,
He's
yeah.
he's a thin,
Slight.
slight
Yeah.
guy, and he does these these gigantic things, but you really will hear the alteration of the creature as he's pressing in and just and it gets worse and worse the harder he presses
The
until his eyes are
point
bugging
of
out.
all this is when you're a little kid or you're driving on long car trips and you're doing things in the car window, there is could be a time in your life when this could come in handy.
Yeah.
So all those things you do, and that's what's so cool about voiceover, because nobody's watching you, but those little things that you discover just as a human being that you wonder what it's worth, and then one day you're in the booth and you're like, wait, I think I know
Wait a
how
minute,
to do
didn't I do the
that.
thing?
Right.
Exactly,
Yeah, we're getting
yeah.
paid for all the stuff that used to get us in trouble.
Ah.
Honestly, that's
What about inspirations for characters? I know that sometimes I once had Tom Kenny, and he was auditioning for something, and he did a character, and I said, wow, that was like a combination of Walter Brennan and the Great Gildersleeve. Now, for anybody who's younger than 70, you have no idea what I'm talking about, because those were characters from the 30s and 40s. But and he said that's exactly what it is. He took these two completely, unrelated people and put them together. Have you ever just done that, where suddenly you were in the booth and you went, okay, it's my Uncle Joe, and
Probably
anything
all the
that
time,
you were
right?
inspired by something that you just thought of or you just saw the night before on TV?
Jetfire for Revenge of the Fallen is actually Ray Winston, a very close friend of mine who I've known for many, many years. And we were in the booth and we were trying all kinds of different voices, and Michael was saying, he needs to be noble but yet rough and yet ancient, and yet there were so many things. And so eventually as we did it over and again, I ended up doing it like this. And behold the glory of Jetfire. And Ray actually went to see the film and he called me and went, Marky, you cheeky bugger. He said, I've been Beowulf and I've been a gangster and now a bleeding alien robot turns into a plane, mate.
There you go.
So he found out, so Jetfire is really Ray Winston, because I just took the whole
That's
inspiration.
perfect. And what's funny is, some people would think that was just a little too over the top and that nobody really sounds like that. And yet, we have all met people who have these amazing sounds and amazing characterizations of what a wonderful guy.
One of these days, I'm going to do you.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't, yeah.
Right
I know
now.
physically people do that. Yeah. I'm not sure I want to be around to hear that.
It's
Thank
on
you so
YouTube
much.
now.
But thanks for the offer. Are there any particular characters that you would love to just demonstrate for us? That are just eerie or fun or creepy or...
No. We should ask them what they want. What do you guys want?
Which, shall we open
Do
it
you
up
have
to
any favorite
questions?
characters out there? You've been so quiet. We've
Here
been
he
doing all the
is.
talking.
A
We've scared
remarkably
him
quiet
now,
group.
look.
Yeah.
They're glazed over now.
Is there anything you want to know about voiceover in general? Yes.
I have a question for all of them. Do you guys have like a special diet or regimen that we don't come out with like cold?
That's a good question.
Get sleep.
The question was, and in case you didn't hear it, was, do they have a special diet or regimen that they follow so that they don't come down with a cold?
Vodka.
Scotch.
Yeah.
Cocaine.
That is,
You know, it's
that's
funny
literally.
because everybody has their own little niche, and there's a webisode called VO Buzz Weekly that's on now. Chuck Duran and Stacey Aswad are interviewing voice actors, and you can watch it. And they did a guy named Scott Rummel who mainly does promos and
Promos, trailers, Ralph's.
grocery store. Yeah, and he
Works
said
quite a bit.
you know, he never yells to keep his voice. And I saw Jess Harnell, who
Yes.
also works on.
Good guy,
And I
lovely
said,
guy.
Jess, I watched the VO Buzz Weekly. Did you see the one with Scott? He goes, yeah. And I said to my girlfriend, if I never yelled, I'd lose most of my salary.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes it depends what you're good at and what you do.
Have you
because-
heard
Yes.
Jess Harnell sing?
Yes.
Yes.
We did a panel once, and it was
Yeah.
very interesting. It's interesting to hear about people's backgrounds here. And we did a panel about the voice guys in the movies from the Transformers films, and we all discovered that we all had musical backgrounds. And Jess has actually got a tremendous
Screams for
voice.
a living.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's got an amazing voice. an
A lot of
amazing band.
voiceover people, I think, understand the musicality of a script.
Exactly.
Based on having come from that experience. I'm often surprised at how many people have that. And
Well,
Alicyn, didn't you put out an album? Didn't you? Weren't you
I have
putting
a
something
couple
together?
songs and music videos. Yeah, I play the ukulele, guitar as well, but I love the uke because it's so portable and fun and easy to play. So it's fun to just it's just another form of creativity and a way to write. But I do think there's something behind that because there's a lot of voice actors that aren't just singers, but are songwriters
Yeah.
or musicians or play an instrument.
Well, I definitely think that the creative bent is part of the experience. That somebody who is open to experiencing different kinds of things. I've certainly seen that in different actors, but I think the musicality. There's something interesting about somebody hears different rhythms and the way things flow.
I'm not really a singer, although I sing in character, but I do think that when you're in the studio and back in the day when we actually worked with other actors and you got to hear the other voices, if you're in tune, you don't want to have the same sound as the other
Yeah.
people. So you're consciously making sure that your voice is, going to sound a little different than the people who you're interacting with. Because you want to stay on the show.
Yeah,
Well,
the
you
bottom
both
line is
sound
keep
the
the
same.
job.
We're going to flip a coin and one of you's out. No, but because they want to play off of each other and sound different.
Yeah.
Because most cartoons you could listen to and almost get the same effect without watching. I mean, well, some are real, but if you can hear it, you want to hear. When you're watching a TV show, you see the actors, you know the difference between each character, even if their voices are similar. But in animation or radio, you have to have that distinction.
Which leads me to, I just realized that we still have to sort of finish this question, but
Oh, right.
I will come back to you. But it leads me to, most of the time when you're actually doing a show, most of the time you're working by yourselves, are you not? How often are you working? We're currently working on recording a job at our place that's done via ISDN, for those of you who know how that works, where one of the actors is in Canada, the other one is here at two are here at our studio, but that all three are working at the same time. that seems to be a little unusual. I mean, I've heard both stories where people are working and actually have in scenes with other actors, and other times where you're just doing your work alone. What are your experiences there?
Most
Anybody?
American animation takes place in, like a radio play, we have a full cast. It's a full cast record. I think that Japanese animation in particular, or any kind of dubbing, any kind of ADR
Sure, of
work
course.
has to be done on a solo basis for the best product, just because it's so technical, and you're matching lip flaps and things like that.
Right.
And for commercial also.
Right, of course. But for instance, for anime, the characters were already done in Japanese, and
Yeah.
you are dubbing the voice in and trying to match the
Into English, yes.
exactly. However, for most animation stuff where you're creating a character, you're doing the voice first, and they're
And
finishing
they're
up the
animating
animation
to it, yeah.
afterwards.
And
Okay.
most of those are recorded in a group format.
Yeah.
Which,
Okay.
Which
all
you
right.
do get
say
that
so.
chemistry
Okay.
going between the other
Which makes
actors.
such a difference.
And it's,
There's,
Yeah.
I mean, there's everything. There's that and the other and everything in between, really. I mean, I've done also radio plays where studios in London where you're all together, but you're all in separate booths.
Yeah.
With a window, so I mean, it's all different variations of these. But I've also done stuff where I'm sure we've all kind of been involved in different, variations on the same theme. But where I've done a character, and then the company has had to use an actor who's based in England or somewhere else, and then and they can't fly them out here, or the actor's not
Right.
going to be here, so they just record that bit over there, and then they kind of put it together. The only problem with that is actually right down to really technical things like the
room
mics,
sounds, yeah.
the microphones that are used. Even if the microphone is different, even if everything else is the same, it's going to sound different. Just the atmosphere is going to sound different. So that's why ideally people don't do that.
And because I work at a studio, sometimes even if the mic is the same, because we have similar mics in all three of our studios,
Right.
each room just has a slightly different room tone.
Absolutely,
So
yeah,
so
yeah.
that can also make a difference. When you're doing a series, you're usually doing it together as a radio play. But when you're doing, say, something like a video game, I know that when we
ourselves.
recorded them, when we recorded them at our place, that indeed the actor goes in alone, and you do all of your lines wild, which means that you're doing them by yourself, and you don't have an actor to whom you're speaking. Is that hard? Does anybody find that particularly difficult, not having somebody to react to?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, and even a lot, some animated series, they will record you alone. We were fortunate enough, the first season of Mr. Men, we were all in the booth together, and there was a whole bunch of actors. We got to play off each
So
other
much
and
fun.
hear each other's beats, and then you're kind of reacting. If she's like, what? You're like, I don't know. But then if you're like, what? I don't know. There's like a million different ways, so if you don't have the actor reading the line before you, you're just kind of taking a shot in the dark. So
Yeah.
you don't know if you're doing good acting or not. You're just making it up in your head. So it's much more challenging.
So how often do you have to go in and pick up lines, and fix something because of the fact that a scene may have taken a turn that they didn't expect?
Every series has pickups after they've put it all together, and maybe
Sure.
for the reasons Alison said. And I loved
Or
what you
maybe not.
just said about, you're not really acting, because acting is reacting. And if you're just, saying lines, you're doing a character maybe, and then there is acting, but it's not the whole
That's
acting thing. And that's why I feel sorry for a lot of people coming up these days who are at home in their little booths, who don't have, at least I think, what little memory I have left at this age, that I remember what it's like acting with people and how other lines might be delivered, so that I can play those scenes. And when I do stuff, I can think of 3 or 4 different ways to read, and that's one of the things I think I do well. And so I can give you different kinds of readings, and then whatever works, when you end up cutting stuff together, hopefully the other person did something that'll
Yeah.
work good with
Right.
it.
In that sense, for those of you who've been doing this for a long time, you're aware of the fact that it's so different from how you used to audition. Even now, if you're auditioning for something that's not animation, where it's a radio spot and it's a dialogue, you're at home in your underwear, and somebody else is at their agent's office.
How did
when
you
I
know
was a
that,
boy, we
Martha?
didn't
You
even
wear
have
underwear?
We had bits of string, you see.
There you go.
I'm
It's a
usually
very sad
Arlene
life, and
Thornton's
yet
in my
you got
underwear.
here.
I usually go to Arlene Thornton's in my underwear. It's much easier now.
Oh, that's where I met you. Hello.
They're very nice, too.
Yeah, exactly.
They match his
remember
shirt
those
usually.
underwear.
I feel bad
yes,
for
your-
your man.
so
over
Diet
there.
question.
Actually,
your question.
I don't know about diet as such. I mean, I can't speak for the others, of course, but of course, it's good, especially if there's a job coming up, to try not to get a cold. I mean, you just do whatever anybody else does to avoid that. But there's things that are good to avoid eating right before you go in. You know, like fruit, in my experience, is not a good thing. Or nuts, actually, because it kind of creates a bit of
anything greasy,
bit of kind of mucus or something in your throat. You know, but the one exception to that seems to be apples.
Green apples.
Green
Who knows
apples.
why?
Green apples,
yeah.
If you've got a little kind of noise going on, or lip smack, or kind of noise, as it's called, then you just eat a bit of green apple, and for some reason.
And no sugar, no coffee.
Yeah.
Nothing with dairy.
Yeah.
Because it causes phlegm.
Although sometimes if you get to know your instrument, you realize, like, if I drink a cup of coffee, suddenly I've got this, like, rasp, like, hip thing going on. Like, where'd that come from? Thanks, coffee.
Yeah.
It's probably the cream in your coffee, not the coffee. It's
Right,
probably
the
the half
coffee
and half.
But we've all been, sometimes, you're at a gathering and somebody will say, oh, I've got a session in the morning, so I can't have a shot of whatever that might be because I know that I need my voice to not be this voice, and then it needs to be something a little lighter. But also, I do know people who have done things where they have particular teas that they drink, or I used to know an actor who didn't speak at all on Sundays because he wanted to rest. Really, I think part of that was also he just didn't want to talk at home.
That's right.
But he wanted to kind of rest his instrument and relax, and so that he would feel completely charged to be able to speak all week long.
I had this one time where, and it's another cigarette-related story. I don't know what's going on. I don't smoke. I don't, But somehow I got the job of a Russell Crowe voice match for this film, right? And Russell Crowe is really down there. And you have to really be in the zone to get there. And I'm sure Mark does it better. But
he's still mad he didn't get the job.
Somehow I got it, and I'd recorded it at home, but I'd recorded it first thing in the morning when my voice was all kind of fruity and a bit dry and everything. Fruity and dry doesn't really go together, but whatever.
Are you the one writing those character descriptions?
That's right. Yeah. Think Clive Owen. So anyway, so then I got the job, but the job was working at 3 p.m, and I was like, I knew what was coming. I knew that by 3 p.m, my voice was not going to be really deep enough. Yeah, it was just going to be, and so I thought I've got to do something, because I was working for someone who doesn't, look kindly on you not doing it, getting it right, and. So I smoked 3 cigarettes in the car on the way there, and I don't even smoke. So I thought I've got to do something to dry my voice out. So I was just chain smoking in the car on the way down there. Yeah.
So you got there and threw up?
Yes, I got there and threw up everywhere.
What a success story.
Just like Russell Crowe. But eventually I kind of got there. Yeah,
and
it took
then
a
you
little while,
speak
but-
from the heart.
Yeah.
So it all worked out.
But that's what, when I'm doing stuff at home, and I look and see what do I have to do, and the boys I do in the morning, and the little girls I'll do in the afternoon, because I know my volume creeps up.
Interesting.
If
Does anybody else have any other? Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was just going to say, if I said that in exactly the way you just said it, it would be interpreted completely differently.
Yeah.
Terrible thing.
And I meant pitch.
I know
volume.
that. I know you meant that, but
I know.
inside
I have the luxury.
my brain went south. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that Peter Cullen is one of the people that can successfully smoke cigarettes and come back to the microphone after he finishes coughing his lungs out and deliver the Optimus Prime thing.
But
with
that's
that
what gives him that voice.
beautiful, smooth voice.
Yeah, but he's always.
Yeah, and he's immune to all the ill effects of it. But for anybody else getting into the industry, don't smoke. Not a good idea ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Some people attribute their voices to the fact that they smoked for years and they were scared to stop.
Yeah.
Corey Burton
Yeah.
started smoking
Yeah.
just to do those voices.
Really?
That's why he smoked.
But he's so incredibly talented and does so many things. It's so funny that you would think,
I know.
yeah, you never know what's going to drive somebody. Does anybody else have any questions?
You had a
Yes.
question, right?
It's very similar to what you're talking about. I was wondering in sports, how like athletes start to get psyched up and stuff and do their performances. And I wonder, when you're doing the voiceovers, you'll do the same thing, or is it days that no matter what, it's a perfect day, you did all your preparation, and you can't get that voice? You can't reach it?
It's a good question.
Did you hear the question? Which was, just like athletes, you prep and you psych yourself up for something, and are there just some days where no matter what you do, you can't seem to get to that voice, you can't seem to
The voice box
recreate it?
is a very interesting muscle. When I was singing, when I was doing Evita, I was playing Shay, we did 8 shows a week. And so you're running around and screaming your head off, literally, for shows back to back. And so you have to understand physically how the voice works. And when a voice gets tired, when you are physically tired, the reason that the timbre drops down is because your phlegm, actually, the lubricant that lubricates your voice muscles actually thickens up. That's why your voice drops when you have a cold. So what you're trying to do is take things that are going to lighten up, if you like, the lubricant, so your voice can actually vibrate at those higher resonances. And so there's stuff you can do if you want to, like lemon, hot lemon and stuff like that will actually cut through the phlegm, the lubricant around your voice muscles, and actually push up the sound, the vibrations. So there's weird stuff like that.
Excuse me for interrupting. I will say that as knowing, because I'm on the end where I'm at a recording studio and sometimes we're doing a session, I have on occasion had a client send a talent home because they couldn't deliver today what they had done at a previous session. Their voice might be too raspy today and they wanted it a little more clear, or vice versa, talking about doing it in the morning or the afternoon. So it's not a regular occurrence, but it does indeed happen. Yeah. And knowing your voice makes such a big difference physically. What about you audition for a character, you have an idea of what you want in mind, you go to the session and you have no idea, because it's 2 months later. You have no idea. And they say, okay, we loved what you did at the audition, go.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well,
Please play a reference.
hopefully they have a recording of what you've done, so they'll play it back for you, because chances are you're not going to remember.
Do you ever not recall that and go, I did that? How do I?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know how I got there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially when we did My Little Pony, and we were all doing about 10 different pony voices, and we're like, which one was that? Could you please find it?
Most of the time, I'm like, that's not me. That's Steve. That's Ryan. Steve Blum.
Well, first of all, bless your heart, I have to tell you, 9 out of 10 times, do we ever prepare? I mean, how long we get our scripts when we show up?
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing, okay? We don't have the luxury of practicing and then forgetting. It kind of happens on the spot. And then once you do come up with something, that's when you hope that they've recorded it, because you might not remember how you got there.
Right.
And there's times when I've done an accent and couldn't remember how to get that accent, and like 2 days later, I was able to do it again, because sometimes, you just, especially in animation, you usually are maybe doing 2 or 3, 4 different characters in the same show too. So usually what we do is pick a line, some line that we know that's in the character, some phrase, something that when I say it, it'll like jar me back into that. Thank you, Mr. Ballard. That's Honker's voice is like that, and Sunni Gummi would be, does my hair look okay? Do I look all right? Just different things that remind you. So that was when you said all this preparation. One
of the things, because, I've been doing this for a while, and I know some of you have and some of you are newer to it. When I first started out, when auditions, we'd say, Steve, come to my office tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, and you'd show up having no idea what you were auditioning for, and we'd hand you 17 pieces of paper and say, choose 3 characters, and I'm going to take you in the booth in 10 minutes and audition you.
So you have to have something ready.
And you would hit the ground, and you'd come in, and you'd have 3 different voices for each character. And it was amazing, and you had no prep. Now, you get the scripts the night before, oftentimes. And that's how I understand it. So are you getting the scripts in advance? Are you having a chance to look at something and really figure out what your character and come to a more organic a decision about it? How is that different now from how it used to be?
The problem with that is, even if you do have some inkling of what you think you're going in for, when you get there, chances are the casting director is going to say, well, okay, now try these 6 characters, and you need to do, I know you had Swahili prepared, but I want you to do a young Asian boy now, and you
it is
have
true, because
no
I've been that
idea.
person that said, I know you can do this.
You have no idea what you're ever going in for, so you always have to be prepared to pull it out.
And I think we're sort of creatures of habit, because when we used to just show up and do it, now even though we get the scripts, we're like, well, we never did it before, so what am I going to do different now? I'll just do it, which is really bad. You should be more flexible. I know Alisyn's much more prepared with things than I probably ever was.
I bring my iPad to the record and I make sure all my scripts are preloaded on it.
But the other thing is you had that training so that you can think fast on your feet.
And
I think that
yeah.
now people may not be able to because they weren't forced to do it. It's trial by fire.
And I think we just think if it's not broke, don't fix it. But we could be probably better.
Yeah.
I could be better, probably.
So, Alicyn, did you say that you go in, if you're doing a script, do you actually go in and have it prepared and marked, or do you wing
I
it?
do to a certain extent, especially, if it's not a character I'm that familiar with, I definitely try and look over the script and, maybe make some notes. But I will say there's something about spontaneity, and it's possible to overwork in voiceover. And
Absolutely.
you want your instrument to be tuned, but there's so much improv. And if you work on it too much, you kind of work yourself out of the character. You think too much about, I'm going to react this way, as opposed to just living in the moment. And I think there's sort of a marriage of the two.
Yeah, what Steve said is absolutely right, because you got to be prepared. Voiceover is so improvisation, unless it's radio, right? If you're doing a commercial and you can practice it and you know how you're going to deliver it. But
Even then it could change, though.
yeah,
It
when you
usually
show
does.
up and they
Yeah.
say this, or you all of a sudden you spot something that no one sent you and say, hey, can I read for this character?
Yeah.
Because this one hits me the right way. And there's that nice organic thing. And from experience, once you've done it once or twice where you've been so prepared and you show up and then they ask you to do something that you weren't prepared for, forget it. When I get there, I'll find out what it is,
wing
I'll
it,
do it then.
yeah.
And if I
Right.
get it, I get it. And if I don't, I don't. And the chances are it'll be just as good as if I had prepared for 3 days as if I didn't, right?
Part of the
Yeah.
fun of being in the profession,
exactly.
actually,
Yeah.
is,
Well,
is,
it's-
is going in, doing it, just kind of, getting given something, as you said, and then doing it, and then going home and forgetting about it.
Right.
Right.
Actually, but the Thor thing kind of came about that way. I mean, I got it because they felt that I was the one who was kind of feeling his way through it a bit. And I kind of was, because
Yeah.
I was rushing
Yeah.
around. I recorded it at home. I had something else on that day, and I kind of went into the wardrobe, and I just kind of started recording, and I was kind of going through it and trying to hold the thing, and just kind of
And it
just
worked
kind of
for
doing
you.
it, going
It
through
worked
it,
for
and
you.
yeah.
You never know.
They had a great
Yeah.
organic style of directing. That the group of people that were working on those Marvel productions at that time, I was on those
They
too.
did.
With the Hulk
Yeah.
versus,
Yeah.
I was Wolverine on that.
Right.
On the other side of that, and they did have a very organic way of doing it. And I don't know if they did that when you were in the room,
Very much
but to
so,
the
yeah.
point where the producer would come into the room with us, and he would actually yell at us. Just to inspire us, he goes, "You don't understand.
No,
the stakes are high here. You're gonna die."
No, that was just you, Steve. He just wasn't.
It was
happy.
just me. Sorry,
He didn't do
Never
that.
mind that. Never scratch that.
I have-
Who
I'm sorry,
were
you
those
two.
Yeah, no,
people?
you're right.
Who is your director on that?
Was Jamie
Jamie Simone.
Simone?
Yeah, but the producers from Marvel would actually
Craig.
come into the room. Craig Kyle,
Yeah.
in particular,
Yeah.
would come to the room, and I've never seen a producer do that before. Usually, the producer is kept silent. They have a button so that you can't hear what they're saying behind the scenes as they're talking
Right.
about you when you screw up a line. But Craig would actually come on the other side of the glass and scream to the point where veins were popping out of his head. And not in an evil way, but it was intimidating as hell. And we really fully understood what the stakes were by him doing that.
Yeah.
That's not common that happens. But
No,
it
they
was,
were pretty.
it was pretty exciting to
Hands-on,
have that
yeah.
kind of an experience on
Yeah,
that show.
absolutely.
to say the least.
That's cool.
Does anybody have any geek questions? My favorite character is anything that you really want to know? Anything
Or any
special?
questions?
Yeah. Yes.
Blum, I watch and play most of the stuff you work on. What's been your favorite character? 460 different.
This is the answer I always have to give. It's the character that I'm working on today. There are so many that stand out, as benchmarks in my career, like Spike Spiegle in the anime world, and maybe Wolverine, and lately Amon from Korra, that sort of thing. But it really depends on how I'm feeling that day and what I'm working on that day. And I feel like I have to fully invest myself in that character, no matter how big or small. I mean, I literally played like Soldier A and Dying Guy B on Wednesday of this week, and I was just as fully invested in that as I am, on something like Wolverine, where I've been working on it for 8 years. But for my style of work, I feel like that has to be my favorite in that moment. and any other answer wouldn't be authentic.
Cool. How much when somebody says, "Oh, I do voices," how do you feel about that in terms of voices versus characters? Do you feel like you do voices or you're embodying characters?
I think when somebody says, I do voices, my question is, yes, but do you act? Because that has to come before the voices. The voices is the topping on it. You really have to act and embody the character before the voice means anything.
So if you were going to give advice, any of you, if you were going to give advice to somebody who was up and coming and really wanted to be in this industry and really wanted to be a successful voiceover actor, how would you say to go about that so that they can, they can really latch hold and it's not just something that they, that they're aspiring to, but that they actually can do it? Do you recommend training? Do you recommend what?
Definitely building a good, solid acting training, and improv is also fantastic training for especially for animation voice acting. And then in LA, in this city, there's some amazing classes. There's some great ones at Talk Shop, and all across the city, there's some great classes.
Not only voiceover classes, but you mentioned improv, and have all of you done improv on some level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how, that was
not
my,
so much.
I wasn't a theater major. I never did acting in school, and I ended up taking an improv class just because I was working. I wasn't even in college. I was trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, and there was an improv class in San Francisco, and I thought, maybe this will help me get some confidence. And it wasn't about performing at all. It wasn't like LA. It was the improv exercises, which are really terrific for anything.
There are classes like that in Los Angeles
and I know that.
as well.
I know there are. So if you to do those, and then I took the next class, and I took the next class, and then one day I was on stage doing it. But there isn't anybody. Very few people in voiceover who haven't done improvisational theater. Because it's the same thing. It's spontaneous. You get a script. Okay, all right, now you're going to play this kid, and he just got bit by a dog, and this fire-breathing dragon comes over and lights your hair on fire, so go.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd also say, if you are into it, then experiment with stuff. Just record stuff on your laptop or whatever. And just experiment with. If it's character stuff, just play around and record. It doesn't have to be the final thing that you send out to someone to hear or whatever. Just have some fun and see what you're good at as well. Because there's a lot of people in this town and all over the world, of course, who are good at voices. And can do voices. So if somebody wants someone who does a French accent or whatever, there's 100 people and there's 1,000 people in this town, and you might not be the one. You might think you can give it a go, but there's probably someone, unless you are really good at it, then go with that, That's the advice I always give to anybody who asks, any friends or whatever who ask what they should put on a reel. I always say, well, have a listen to stuff that's on the radio, if it's promo stuff and commercials, and think kind of what they could imagine their voice being used for. Because they're not going to get used for anything else, generally. You're not. I'm not going to get used for certain products. It's just, the way it is. But I might get used for other products or things or promos or characters, So, yeah.
Being realistic about who you are and what you do.
Yeah,
But the other thing is, when you talked about playing and sitting with your laptop at home, one of the great things that you guys are talking about, which is that acting is reacting, and that is, my suggestion would be, do it with your friends. Don't just sit in a vacuum and try to create all the characters, but try to have somebody... And do your own improv things, with your friends and let your imagination go, because I think that would probably help us tremendously in terms of what you do.
I often tell people just to read kids' books out loud.
Two kids.
Two children, yeah.
They're honest.
If you can get your, Yeah,
you stink, Mr. Blum.
Well, and it's so funny. Well, kids aren't used to it because I've done some substitute teaching in my life, and when I get to the part where I'm reading a story, I've actually had the class applaud. Yeah. They're not, because it is a different thing, but it gives you a chance to, come up with all kinds of different character voices on the spot as you're reading a story.
Yeah.
Right? So, and the other thing is, when people ask me, I say, look, listen, classic movies, classic characters. Like when you mentioned Walter Brennan and, Walter Pigeon or who, these are characters that you can imitate, but you don't have to do a dead-on impersonation. We all are imitating. I'm going to imitate something Alicyn did someday, and she'll probably imitate me, but it's never going to sound exactly, it's never going to sound, right now, it's never going to sound exactly the same, but you develop an ear and whatever suits you. Like someone was looking at my autograph booth, and my stuff is stuff that I like. I'm a happy person. I like fun things. You're not going to hear me, ripping people's eyeballs out on a regular basis or anything.
It's fun for me, yeah.
It's fun for him.
We're saving that for Mark.
But listen to characters. Listen to the personalities is really the thing, right? The attitudes, and then incorporate those in yourself. So when someone says an attitude like so and such, you don't have to be that person. But when it comes out of you, it'll be your own version.
Especially a great example of that is Mark's work in Transformers. I mean, because those kind of voices, it's really tough to make sure that personality comes through. Right? I mean, it's just you just got to be really. It's subtle, and you just got to be true to what's going on in the script, and that's what it's about. It's not just about the voice, right?
Vodka.
There you go.
I think it's about commitment. I think it's a lot about commitment. I think it's about a lot deciding what you're going to do and moving forward with it. It's not a point. It's not a voiceover point. But I was sitting once doing a panel with a wonderful writer called Terry Nation, who's the man that invented the Daleks. He wrote a lot of Doctor Who. He wrote a lot of British comedy. And comedy, I think, is vital for this kind of thing as well, because the reaction of the audience teaches you timing. And that's why improvisation is brilliant. As well as music, it gives you the ear for the tone and the rhythm. And anyway, we were talking about writing, and somebody stuck their hand up and said, Mr. Nation, have you got any advice for anybody who wants to be a writer? And he said, you write? And he said, yeah. I said, well, what have you written? He said, I've written 2 novels, I've got 2 screenplays, I've got 3 comic books, I've got this. He said, and how many of them have you finished? And he said, no, I've never finished any of them. And he said, here's the best advice I'm going to give you. He said, a writer writes, but a professional writer finishes writing.
Wow.
And it changed my life, because I was in the course of writing a book, which we finally got. So I think it's about commitment. Once you've decided it's something you want to do, you have to go for it and push it and needle on it and work at it and keep noodling with it until you can make it manifest in your reality.
Because one of the things that I say to people, sometimes somebody will say, well, I've heard that, people say I have a good voice, or, I know I do this well. And I say, well, just being tall doesn't mean you're ready for being in the NBA. Right. And even if you play a good pickup game with your friends on the weekends, if you want to be a professional, you have to work really, really hard at it to be good at what you do. And all of you have worked really, really hard at what you do to get where you are.
Oh, so I was just going to say,
except I think for Matt.
Except for me,
yeah. There are exceptions, right?
I was just going to say as well, I mean, even on that point, I mean, even and all your voices and stuff, but Steve's, your growling and your where you started, that you're really good at your dinosaur noises and your, and your monster noises.
It's his best.
Even
his dinosaur noises are his best.
Even that stuff.
Whoa.
See?
But even that stuff has a personality,
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's something going on, that character is that animal, that dinosaur, whatever, is reacting to something in a certain way, in some kind of thought pattern.
There still is a truth to it, whatever hokey thing it may be. And I'm not suggesting a dinosaur is, but
it can be.
Sometimes it's the cheesiest character ever, but you can't do it from the outside looking in. It has to be. You have to believe it from the inside out, or we're not going to believe it.
Right. Yeah. Scooby-Doo didn't really talk, but he reacted.
There you
Other
go.
questions? I don't know.
Any other questions? Yes.
What voices or noises got you in the most trouble in school? Everybody, actually.
Yeah. What
I can't
voices
say
or
those
noises
words.
got you in
It's
trouble
not
in school?
antenna.
Yeah. We're already sending you to the principal.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It's pretty annoying, right?
Yeah.
I like it.
Did you guys
I
get
didn't
in
use my
trouble, or were
hands.
you goody two shoes?
I think I did mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a noisy. I come from a very noisy family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
no trouble.
Isn't that funny? You suddenly remember the things your parents taught you.
Burping, probably.
Yeah.
I
I still stunt burp.
do.
I
Yeah,
do that
I do.
for other actors
I
who
whistle.
can't.
Stunt burp.
Really?
Stunt burp, yeah.
Yeah. Can you say the alphabet or anything special?
I used to be able to say the alphabet.
Yeah.
I can't do it anymore. I'll throw up.
And
But sometimes that makes for
and
good
wouldn't that
cartoons
be
too.
fun, everybody?
Oh, Yeah, you know what? Oh, that's good. See, if you can't appreciate that, you have no business being in this room.
That's gold right there.
That's it. When you hear that, if you don't light up and get little goosebumps, come on. I mean, then
burps and
then
farts
go
are funny,
find
I don't
another
care how old you are.
voiceover is not for you.
No, exactly.
Well, if we don't have any other questions, maybe everybody should just tell about the projects they're working on right now that they would love that you watch. How about that? Want to start with Katie?
We can't talk about anything.
We
Probably can't talk about
Everybody
anything.
signed
Yeah.
NDAs. I know. I'm thinking about that. We just finished a project,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping you'll all see it, but I can't tell you about it.
No, well, you know what? The thing is, okay, when you're working on a project, first of all, it's not like it's bad luck, but you don't know if you're going to get fired. You don't know if you're going to end up in the final cut. Like, there's no point in talking about it. And once it gets aired, then you did it 2 years ago.
Right.
So, and that's animation because it takes a long time to make animation. But I'm really happy that I did the, Padawan Menace for the Cartoon Network Lego's Star Wars special. It aired in September. I got to voice Han Solo as a kid, which was like pretty darn awesome.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have to audition for it. So that was like the most awesomest of all. But I think it was on again, or it will be on again. So if you watch that, that's
very
makes
cool.
me happy.
And the show that you said, the Poppycat, that's starting again tomorrow night, right?
Well, I don't know. It's been on already, so she
moving
knows
to
more
a
about it.
It's
major
either on
network.
NBC
It's moving.
or ABC
Oh, it is?
what we're finding out, right?
Like
Yeah.
soon?
I think
Didn't you say July 7th?
Oh,
July
I thought it
7th.
was September. See, I don't know.
11
oh.
There you go. Thank you. It's 11 a.m. tomorrow on
NBC.
what station?
Tomorrow?
Yeah,
Oh.
Saturday morning cartoons are coming back.
Yay!
It's pretty exciting.
That'll be nice.
Grab
Do you
your
have anything that
cereal.
you're doing right now that you want to tell us about?
I'm going out for dinner tonight.
All right. And you're buying?
Any place good?
And what does that sound like?
Well, it's come full circle because as we started, I'm a serious actor, and I've got everything I do is serious. I did a radio version of Romeo and Juliet with Callista Flockhart as Juliet. You see, in radio, you can do that.
I was just going to say Callista Flockhart as
Yeah,
Juliet. That is a stretch,
exactly.
but it's voiceover.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, even me as Romeo, to be honest. But so that's coming out soon. So for
Very
LA
cool.
Theatre Works.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Alicyn?
Yeah, if you haven't seen Poppycat, you should check that out. I play Alma. She's an adorable bunny that just loves her blue pearls. Oh, Poppycat, will you help me find my blue pearls? She's a bit of a drama queen.
It's
Not
very cute
typecast.
show. It's a very beautiful show.
Yeah, it's
look
well
at.
done. And then we're working on a new show, which maybe Katie's right, maybe I shouldn't jinx it. But we just started recording last week, and I get to play this 12-year-old girl. It's like,
From my feasibility study, I know that if I just study hard enough, I will learn more about space than you could ever possibly imagine.
and so that's really
Yay.
cool. I
Yay.
usually do a little younger. But it is true. It's like I got cast in this amazing job singing the theme song to an upcoming Nick show.
Oh, cool.
And I was so excited. It was going to be huge. The show's going to be huge. And then they ended up ditching that theme song and using a completely different theme song. So, but man,
Wishing
it was
you hadn't
good.
told everyone you knew you were doing it.
I know.
Yeah.
So glad I didn't put it in my newsletter. But you just never know. So keep on trucking.
There you go. Mark, what about you?
Wow. About 15 years ago, I wrote a book called The Greenwood Tarot about the psychology of the imagery of the tarot cards. And it became quite successful. So about 3 years ago, a company asked me to rewrite it with different artists, which we've done. And they sold the app to both for the iPhone and for the iPad, the new book, Wildwood Tarot. And somebody obviously worked out, well, why don't we get the guy to voice the prompts for the whole system? So we did that, which I found great fun to do. I mean, it was just where you're talking. And because of when we actually wrote the book, there's a lot of talk about meditations and stuff. They're now talking about adding in a whole series of meditations. So I've recorded the prompts, and then we're going to go back and record a whole series of meditations.
So when you say meditations for tarot, so
Yep.
that it has to do with the ways to approach your life?
Yes, there are two major systems with tarot cards. One is the Kabbalah, and the other is the Wheel of the Year, which is the European system. It's called the Wheel of the Year, where the midwinter solstice is on December 21st and the midsummer is on the June 21st. And it's very similar to the Native American Indian medicine wheel, actually, as well. And around that wheel, as you travel around the wheel, you bump into these different characters that are associated with the different festivals. And that's why we have the totem animals as well at various times of the year. So as you're going around this journey around this wheel, you bump into these various creatures and characters from the tarot cards. So that's what we'll be doing next.
Bumping into characters at festivals. So
basically, yeah. And taking on the
sounds like a
aspects
big
of the
party.
archetypes.
It sounds great. That sounds terrific.
It's fun.
Steve, what about
That's
you?
much more interesting than what I'm doing.
Not as well paid, I can tell you.
But deeply gratifying internally. So.
It feeds his soul.
Well, a lot of my shows are ending just because of the season right now. We just finished the last episode broadcast for Legend of Korra, the new Avatar series. And so I heard it's moving over to Australia and over other places overseas, so go over there and see it again. Transformers Prime is still continuing on with season 2. I heard there's a little delay that's going to be picking up in the fall. There's a show called Rescue Bots, which is like Transformers for kids with all new Autobots. And I'm actually playing a good guy on that. I'm playing a guy called Heatwave.
No, I'm going to write to them and have that stop.
The apocalypse is upon us because of this. And one of the games, the only game I think that I can talk about now is Guild Wars 2, which we've been working on for many, many, many years, and that's coming out in August, I heard. Cool. That's finally going to be happening soon. So stay tuned. There's a lot, and I have like 7 or 8 more games that are coming out this fall too. That I'm not allowed to talk about.
Could you let the rest of us work in the industry?
Really? Now I know why I have never met you, because you're just in the studio. Actually, I'd be remiss. I'm working on a podcast. I don't know if anybody here's ever heard Adventures in Odyssey, this radio show I've been working on for 25 years.
I got to work on that finally.
Did you?
Episode, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it's our 25th year on the air. But Phil Lawler, the creator, and Will Ryan, who's a voice actor, and I are producing podcasts, and they're going to be on a website soon. And Phil gave me permission to say we don't really know exactly what the title will be, but my suggestion was fill in the blanks. And
fill in the blanks.
Yeah,
that's nice.
I'm one of the blanks. And anyway, so hopefully if you check my website, katielee.com, or come down and put your name on the mailing list down at the booth, we'll keep you posted if you're at all interested.
Cool. Thanks. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Once again, Katie Leigh, Matt Wolf, Alicyn Packard, Mark Ryan, and Steve Blum.
Woohoo!
And I'm Martha Marcus.
I'm Martha Mayakis!
And Martha!
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Bravo! All right.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you all for coming.
This is where you guys rush the stage.